Imagine spending your childhood being anything but a kid, overachieving, spending your free time striving, and lacking proper tools and modeling for healthy emotional regulation. Let me tell you, this is a setup for an adulthood of abandonment and a perpetual feeling of not being good enough. How do you begin healing your relationship with your inner kiddo, especially when you don't have a template? Well, that is when Bluey returns to save the day this week. This wonderful Australian animated series created by Joe Brum and produced by Ludo Studio from Queensland has stolen my heart and my inner kiddos, and it has taken the world by storm. And it is still doing so, though the show has not released new episodes in a while. Today, I want to continue this show illustration and will use Bluey to demonstrate what healthy parenting can look like. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental illness and provide support to anyone diagnosed with C-PTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or any of the conditions or disorders mentioned in this podcast, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals or resources mentioned in this podcast are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. This episode may reference trauma or abuse, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to hit the like button and subscribe to let me know this episode was helpful. I want to officially welcome any newbies and welcome back any returning listeners. As always, I'm glad you found this content. I wish you didn't need it, and I hope that it's helpful to you in your healing journey. So, quick check-in. I am getting ready to wrap up season 2 of Hello Trauma Brain, which means that this is going to be the second to last episode. I know, it's a little wild to say it out loud, so that means that next week is going to be the season finale. It's a little wild to even take in that I am about to finish 2 full seasons of a podcast, but crossing fingers, if everything goes as planned, I will be taking a hiatus for the rest of the summer, and then Hello Trauma Brain would return in the fall. In terms of my current state of mind, I have been feeling more empowered. I feel like this year I am really noticing some shifting in terms of my healing, and I'm starting to feel more of the anger, that anger that I have suppressed for a very long time. And also I am feeling more capable of handling things, which is a really nice feeling. And I realized as I am even saying this that I am feeling a little bit scared about saying it out loud, but I'm going to practice saying it anyway because I feel like it is important to share the ebbs and flows of healing. And one day it doesn't feel great, but there are some good things that do come from it. And definitely I'm riding some of that wave where I am experiencing some of the benefits from all the work that I've been putting in. So yeah, stay tuned for more. And I hope you can join me for the season finale next week. About this episode, so it was an unintentional 2-part deal. I started talking and then I went on for like 2 hours and decided to split things up. So the few disclaimers are going to be that if you have not seen the series and you do mind the spoilers, you might want to pause and come back when you've seen the show because I am going to be talking about episodes from different seasons and I will be spoiling some things. Also, this is part two. So if you have not listened to part one, I invite you to check that out first so things this week make a little bit more sense. So let's jump right in, and I hope you enjoy part two of this show illustration on Bluey. One episode that was a bit hard to watch for me is Butterflies, and this is when a neighbor, Judo, is playing with Bingo and Bluey. And to cut to the chase, Judo convinces Bluey to leave Bingo playing by herself. They leave Bingo behind and run away. And at this point, Judo wants to control even the next game that she plays with Bluey. Judo seemed pretty self centered and lacking a lot of empathy. And I have to say, her behavior reminded me of one of my abusers because the game that Judo wanted to play was basically having Bluey pretend call her, and then she just gets to unload and complain about all her problems to Bluey. And it was just very uncanny because I've been in that situation where I'm required to call and just listen for so long about problems. And sometimes the same shit I've heard like 50 times, but they just want to tell it one more time. And I just have to sit there. I don't get to talk about what's happening on my life. It's just the other person just venting and just trauma dumping on me. It was really interesting to see how this played out in the episode because what Bluey ends up doing is she basically goes like, okay, I'm gonna hang up now, and just hangs up, but Judy just keeps talking by herself. Bluey comes back and does repair with Bingo. And it's actually very heartwarming to see that scene where Bingo is still very sad and Bluey is giving her the space she needs, but slowly coming towards her and apologize, and they get to hug it out and do repair. And then Judah comes back and ends up understanding what had happened and apologizes, and they all end up doing repair and are able to play together again. One thing I'll point out, and this show does this very cleverly, you see the kids emulating the behavior of the parents. So I have a feeling that Judo's behavior was probably mirroring something that her mom does. And given some other episodes where I get to see the mother, I wouldn't be shocked if Judo's behavior of like calling and talking on the phone for hours and hours on end is something she has seen modeled by another adult. And Bluey definitely shows this herself. Like you see Bluey imitating her parents. Like if she's out with Bandit and there's an expression he uses or something happens, you sometimes see the play reenacting something that Bluey has seen her parents do. It's really fascinating. Again, this show, it's so well done. I feel like the people that are behind the show understand child psychology or developmental psychology very well, and they really get it. So I feel like you wouldn't be able to catch those nuances unless you actually got it. And this is one of those moments where this show captures how attentive kids are. Like kids are paying attention to the adults all the time. If there is one thing I have noticed in kids is they are sponges. Whether they are in the next room or they are in the same room with you, that kid is paying attention to everything you're doing and saying, and they are not missing a beat. And if you think that kid is completely oblivious, get ready for a rude awakening. Because before you know it, they will be saying something you said like 3 days ago in public, and it will shock you. Now, one of the toughest episodes of this show for me is Mom School. This one I have had to skip sometimes during some of my rewatches. This episode, in my opinion, captures what having an emotionally immature parent in your life. You want to see how an emotionally immature parent behaves? This episode will show you. In this episode, Bluey is pretending in her game that all these balloons are her children. She's got a bunch of them, and she asks her mom to keep the score of her parenting because she's in mom school now. And at first, Chili goes, well, you don't need someone keeping score of your mothering, which I have to say, what a beautiful thing to say, because I feel like parents that are emotionally immature, toxic, abusive, whatever label applies to you, you can insert here, they're keeping score. And it's almost like they want medals for their parenting. Even the most basic shit, like having dinner ready at a decent time. And they not only want a medal for it, but they want to constantly get an award for it time and time again. It's wild. And I thought it was really beautiful how Chili even pointed that out. Like, that's the point of mothering, is not to be keeping score and all that, and also not to be expecting medals, especially for basics. And the medal for basics is something I got from Patrick Tehan. Now, during this episode, there is one balloon, one of Bluey's quote unquote kids in the game, called Greenie. And the other balloons are down on the floor with Bluey, but Greenie keeps floating up to the ceiling. And Bluey is constantly pulling Greenie down, back with its siblings. And at this point, the siblings are fighting, and one balloon hits the other. And Bluey goes, "Well, you kind of had that coming." And Chili replies, "Well, I don't know about that." I think what made this episode particularly harder to watch was seeing an 8-year-old kid doing things that I have seen adults do. And I feel like that is the moment where the whole emotionally immaturity clicked for me. I've heard the term, I've listened to the audiobook on emotionally immature parents. I have been consuming a lot of content about that for a long time. And I feel like it wasn't until I saw this episode that I was like, oh, I get it now. Having an emotionally immature adult in the room is like having a child in the room. I know I've heard that metaphor in the books, and I've processed what the words mean in terms of what the sentence is trying to say, but to see a kid that's around 6 or 7 years old behaving in the same way I have seen adults behave, literally saying something that I have seen adults say to their kids, that I have seen emotionally immature adults say to me, that's a whole different ballgame. And Chili does a beautiful job at redirecting Bluey with a lot of empathy, a lot of patience, a lot of repetition. It's another thing that toxic or abusive parents do, and it's expect the kid to get it on the first try. Expect the kid to incorporate the thing after one time. They expect the kid to put away the toys away every single time after just saying it one time. And if the kid doesn't think about putting away the toys, they'll complain about, why don't you get it? I already told you. You should already know that you should be putting this stuff away. And there's a lot of assumptions about the kid just getting it immediately. And this is the abusive part, shaming the kid for not getting it right away. Chili is constantly redirecting Bluey. So in this episode, Chili's actually trying to get Bluey to take a bath, but Bluey tries to play mom school instead. Chili's redirecting Bluey and goes, how about we take the children to the indoor pool? And then Bluey starts going towards the bath with her balloon children. And Bluey's pushing all these balloons down the hall, and they're balloons. Every time she pushes the balloons, they just spread out throughout the hall. And Bluey's complaining that they won't walk in a straight line. And also that Greenie keeps floating up to the ceiling. And Chili goes, well, they don't know how. And what I love about Chili is that she goes, you have to show them. In the show, it is cute to see Bluey making all these quote unquote parenting mistakes, and to see the lack of empathy and the lack of understanding of how children work. But to see an adult actually doing this stuff, that's a tougher pill to swallow. And here is the thing, Bluey is actually incorporating the feedback and the guidance that Chili is giving her. And I was really impressed by that. And what creates a problem when you're dealing with an emotionally immature adult, especially one that is parenting, is the fact that these adults cannot take feedback, not well. So they're not incorporating the feedback. If anything, they are doubling down. Let me tell you, that's not cute nor pretty, and it's abusive. And in the show, Bluey actually takes in the feedback and ends up sitting down with Greenie, the balloon that keeps going to the ceiling. And she tells Greenie, one day you can float as high as you want. But for now, I'm going to give you this gift. And the gift was this magnetic letter. And she ties it to the balloon so it can keep it down on the ground. For me, seeing this scene was so powerful because it not only captures meeting the kid at their age appropriate level and showing patience, understanding, compassion, and offering a fun way to introduce a tool. And what I like about what Bluey says is that it is acknowledging that this kid at one point will become independent and they will be going off on their own. And that is the normal way of things. And in this episode, it turns out this balloon And one of the times when it floats up to the ceiling, it keeps going to the point where it gets to the porch area and it just goes outside and it's just now floating out into the sky. There's no stopping it. And Bluey and Chili just stand there as this balloon just flies off again into the distance. And this is something that I know emotionally immature parents will struggle with, which is letting their child go off on their own and accepting that and encouraging it as a healthy part of living. And it is not that it's not sad. Bluey is sad that the balloon is going away. Chili, I'm sure, is going to be super sad the day that Bluey and Bingo go off on their own. It is not that it doesn't cause any feelings or that a parent is not allowed to be upset. Of course they are. That's their kid. But to hold to things at the same time. I feel sad and I know that this is the best thing for my kid. They need to go on their own and I support them. An emotionally immature parent would be shaming that kid to hell and back for even thinking about leaving. They haven't even left yet. Just the possibility that they might is enough to start the shame. And that can cause so much damage for someone who is trying to figure out their way and develop. And it quite frankly stunts a really crucial part of developing. Remember when I said that the episodes are usually less than 10 minutes? There is one exception to this. There's one episode in season 3 towards the end of the season. It's called The Sign. And this episode is, I want to say 28 minutes long. So it's almost half an hour. And let me tell you, a wonderful episode. If this is an indication of what the feature film could be, sign me up. So what I want to share from this episode today is that it captures very well the concept that kids don't just know things and how sometimes adults can take that for granted. Bluey spends most of this episode upset because her parents are selling the house, and she is sad about leaving her school and her friends, home, community. And you can tell that her mom, Chili, is also very sad about the move and doesn't sound like she wants to move either, but she's trying to make the best of it and keep an optimistic outlook for the kids. And even Bandit, the dad, is struggling with this. And you can see him wrestling with feeling sad and seeing his family struggling with this potential move and also wanting to take this new job opportunity he has in front of him that could potentially give his family a better life. There's one member of the family who seems to be completely okay with everything that's happening, and that's Bingo, the younger kiddo on the show. Bingo is like, that's okay. Oh, that's cool. Oh, those people are coming to see the house? Fun. She's just completely nonchalant about it. And then the house sells and moving day arrives. And Bingo starts noticing that her toys, her furniture, her things are just disappearing. And she's having a bit of a freak out about it. And that is when her mom understands, oh, Bingo doesn't know what selling the house means. And Chili very patiently sits down with Bingo and basically confirms that Bingo thinks that selling the house just means that other people bought it and they still get to live in the house anyway. It doesn't change anything. And that is when Chili has to explain to Bingo that it means that they now have to move somewhere else. And now Bingo is super upset and sad about the move. And something that I love is she's not shamed for not understanding. She's not called names. She's not treated like she should have known. There's that moment of, oh, of course she doesn't know. Of course. She's a kid. She's 6. And Bluey has a beautiful moment where she helps soothe and comfort Bingo. And I definitely have to do more Bluey episodes so I can dive into some of the many other gems that I'm not going to be able to get through today. That was definitely another way I saw really good, healthy parenting modeled. And it is in recognizing that a kid shouldn't just know. They don't know. And they need help. And one of my favorite episodes is Stickbird. And what I want to share from this episode is an exercise on emotional regulation. This is something that Bluey's buddy teaches him, and we get to meet Bluey's buddy in a different episode. Her name is Mia. And this strikes me as one of those like big brother, big sisters type of programs. Now, I like buddy because it kind of has like a gender neutral vibe to it. The exercise is something that Bluey teaches her sister Bingo when she is feeling really sad and upset and angry at something that happened during their holiday. They're at the beach. they're facing the ocean, and Bluey asks Bingo, "Where do you feel the upset in your body?" And Bluey even helps her. She's like, "Sometimes you can feel it in your tummy. Where do you feel it?" And Bingo, I think, feels it in her shoulders and in her tummy and in her heart. And Bluey is guiding Bingo and getting all the upset from her body, kind of making it into a ball, and then throwing the ball super far out into the ocean. Full disclosure, it's been a struggle recording this episode. I feel like the episodes recently have been a little hard for me to like record, and a lot of OCD comes, and it's just been a challenge. Whew, but I kind of just did the exercise that I am talking about just now. Whew, okay. So in the episode, after Bingo tries the exercise, she feels a lot better. And Bluey and Bingo run off to their mom. Bandit stays behind. And here is where the tissues can come in very handy. You can tell during the episode that Bandit was preoccupied with something. I know the hosts of Gotta Be Done have the theory that Bandit was already preoccupied about this new job offer and potentially having to decide to move. I think so too. He's been preoccupied throughout the episode. The way you can tell is because he's distracted, and sometimes people are trying to get his attention, and it takes a few times for them to get Bandit to pay attention. And you can see he's just somewhere else. So he stays behind and he starts doing the exercise, y'all. It's so sad. And he starts picking up the upset from his own body, and he makes the ball and he throws it into the ocean. And it's really interesting because the way they animated this is you become almost like the ball of upset, and Bandit essentially like throws the audience out into the ocean, and then we splash into the oceans and you can see the fishes and all the sea creatures swimming around and having a grand time as the episode ends. Yeah, it's such a good episode. I think it's a beautiful way to model teaching children to regulate their emotions in a way that is almost like a game. So I feel like that's a very effective tactic for kids, and quite frankly, a great exercise even for adults. The last episode I'm going to reference today is actually from the mini-sodes. So after the series was done, they did release mini episodes, and they're like 3-4 minutes long. So it's like half of the length of a regular episode, and it's called Bluey Minisodes. Quite clever, I have to say. And I feel like on days where my inner kiddo wants an extra episode of Bluey, that's a nice compromise. Like, okay, we'll do a mini-sode. That way it's not as long. And there is one particular episode there called Alongside. Whew. The first time I saw that, I was bawling and crying so hard. And here is why. During the episode is a split screen. On the right side of the screen is Bluey, and on the left side, her friend Honey. And you're seeing them go throughout their day. And Bluey is doing a lot of playing, exploring, playing with her dad, playing with her sister, outside just taking in nature. And Honey is making her own bed, getting her own breakfast, doing sports, music practices, just overachieving, doing house chores. And Bluey does some chores too, but when you're taking in the alongside view and you see how much more Bluey gets to play as opposed to how Honey is just taking care of stuff almost like she's an adult, it struck me as Honey being parentified. That's one of those moments. I feel like these are the important illustrations for people like me or other survivors that didn't get to see the equivalent of what healthy was. When abuse is normalized, you do not know what healthy is. You can't just be like, oh, it's just the opposite. Like, it's not that simple. You almost have to see it side by side like that to go, oh, shit. Okay, that's bad. I get it now. And again, this is a mini-so under 5 minutes. And let me tell you, these people do magic wonders with these short episodes. Like the amount of content they are able to pack in there and the lesson is just, yeah, they all deserve so many awards. And at one point, Bluey and Honey end up meeting up at a red light. Both of their parents are driving them from somewhere to somewhere. And they end up getting so excited and they start waving at each other. And Bingo is with Bluey and they're both waving at Honey and they look so thrilled to run into each other. And there is no dialogue in this episode. It's just the music in the background and you're just seeing them go about their lives. And that moment right there was when I took in the, even for a kid who's parentified, who's taking on more than they should be taking and has all this pressure, at the end of the day, they're still a kid and they still have that joy. It's somewhere in there. It might be dormant for the rest of the day, but if we can connect with it and we can get that out, it's still there. And that is true even for those of us that are adults now. The joy and the kid inside of us didn't go anywhere. It's waiting. It's literally waiting at this red light to see joy and experience it. Oh, gosh. Yep. Surprised I haven't cried yet. P.S. This is the longest I've been talking ever. Like this, I've been talking for 2 hours. It's not going to be 2 hours long. Well, a lot of pauses, a lot of takes that I am definitely not going to keep. And I had to redo several times. But, oof. Yeah, this is definitely the longest I've ever talked ever. I love Bluey so much. I feel so deeply. This show just reawakens so many feelings for me and it just helps me rekindle my relationship with joy. And I feel like I get to process so many emotions when I see this show. I've been wanting to do this episode for a long time. And I am glad I get to do it now as I'm wrapping up season 2. As emotional as I am, I'm going to keep going. One thing I do want to emphasize is that it is appropriate for these kids to struggle with understanding things, show self-centeredness, kind of look a little bit narcissistic, to be honest. Like that is age appropriate for a kid's brain. Self-centeredness, lacking empathy, these are all things that kids are still learning. So it is completely normal and age appropriate for them to be showing those traits. The main difference is that for an actual adult whose brain is fully developed, if that adult is still showing these traits that are, quite frankly, like traits that hint to emotional and developmental immaturity, it can be very harmful. And a grown adult can do a lot of damage if they're not addressing these things. But one key takeaway, if there's anything the show is driving home constantly, it is repair. Do you want to know what the key to being a safe parent is? I have consumed a lot of content and I follow multiple people that create content about healthy parenting. And let me tell you, the one thing they all have in common, the key to being a safe parent, a parent that is doing a good enough job at parenting, is repair. Repair. Repair is how you show your kid you are safe. Repair is how you show your kid to relate in a healthy way with other people. The parent that gets it right 100% of the time does not exist. If I had real children right now, I would not be a perfect parent. And I am not a perfect parent to my inner kiddo either. I get it wrong. Every parent will get it wrong. Something that I have heard survivors talk about, and it's true for me, I feel like sometimes the actual traumatic event is not really what did us in, but the reaction to it or the lack of reaction sometimes. At one point or another, you will fuck it up. Something traumatic will happen to your child. There is nothing you can do to prevent that from ever happening. We're humans. It's part of the deal. Here's what you can do. Be there to support them, to validate their experience. Make sure you repair. And repair doesn't end with just saying, I'm sorry. Repair continues in how you behave next. Do you change your behavior? Do you do better? One of the most powerful questions that I feel changed the game of my reparenting as I dialogue and communicate with my inner kiddo is asking my inner kiddo, what can I do to help you feel better? What do you need? That's where the repair is. And coming up with something that shows your kid that you care so much about them that you're going to make an effort to not do the same thing time and time again. And remember, kids are watching. So how you behave is how they will behave. And this is why repair matters so much. I love this show so much. If you get a chance to watch it, I strongly recommend it. The show is streaming on Disney Plus. I don't know when the movie's gonna come out. I really hope it does, and I hope it's soon. And I know there are some Bluey episodes or clips on YouTube. Honestly, you cannot go wrong with the show. Just have a tissue box nearby and be ready to be reflecting for a while if you see an episode or the whole thing. Though this is not the last time you will hear me raving about Bluey. I feel like Repair is a good place to wrap up this reflection on Bluey and how it portrays healthy parenting. In this week's healing invitation, I want to offer you a few things to reflect about. Last week, for part one, I invited you to reflect on connecting with your inner kiddo. And that is the part of you that experiences joy, has creativity, and holds the authentic and spontaneous essence of you. What came up? Picture yourself raising this kiddo. How would you treat that little one? In the past, I was really hard on myself, and sometimes I am still hard on myself. And picturing my inner kiddo has been so helpful in allowing me to have more self compassion. It is hard to describe, and it can feel weird at first, but if you can stick to it and keep showing up, you might be pleasantly surprised as time goes on. Please let me know in the comments how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform that you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you think could find this podcast helpful. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation via PayPal. I want to thank you in advance for your support. A little can go a very long way in helping the podcast reach more survivors that could benefit from finding this content. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. I wish you the best as you reclaim your relationship with your inner kiddo. It is time for our farewell affirmations. I invite you to repeat after me. I welcome the belief that I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week and thank you for your presence.